Aha. Okay. Welcome to our Technical Communication Across Industries joint meeting with STC Florida chapter and FTC from UCF. Next slide, please. A quick little agenda for us. We just finished our networking time, and we're going to do welcome announcements and an introduction to the event next. Then we're going to go and ask our panelists a couple of prepared questions and then allow for you, our audience, to ask whatever questions you may have for them. Welcome from STC Florida. A little bit about society as a whole. It's the world's largest and oldest professional association dedicated to technical communication. Some of the members include students, academics, practitioners, and managers. Members represent every industry segment in many countries across the globe. There are geographic chapters, special interest groups, also known as SIGs, that produce educational events through the year. A little bit about our chapter in particular. We're biased. We like our chapter. It's very nice here. Lots of great people. It was formed in 1977, dedicated to serving the needs of technical communicators with proud, close ties to UCF and FTC. We also host monthly educational chapter meetings and free networking sessions. Oh, thank you, Bethany, in the comments. Can everyone see the presentation? I'm getting some nods. Thank you.
I can see.
I can, but somebody put a note in there. Where did that note go? Who said they're seeing a black screen?
Rolanda said she can't see, but I'm not sure where that is.
That is weird.
Sorry.
You might want to try just logging out and in again, maybe.
Okay, I'll do that.
And while you're doing that, I will continue reading about benefits of STC membership real quick, and we'll let you in when you come back. Benefits of STC membership allows eligibility for STC honors, volunteer opportunities on global initiatives, network with professionals across the globe, access to the job bank, discount on certification, webinars, and courses, and also access to the Society's publications, including technical communication and intercom. Our chapter also has typically some mentoring and leadership development programs, and also reduced meeting fees for chapter members. There's plenty of volunteer opportunities. If you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, let us know. We'd love to have you. There's also a job bank of hours for local and remote job postings. And of course, we've got networking with tech comm people across Florida and beyond. We do have some opportunities for growth within our chapter. We have the mentoring program for students, new grads, and people who are looking to transition in their career. The leadership development program, which can help you build your leadership skills and qualities alongside an active community leader. The Administrative Council, or ADCO, membership for volunteers who want to learn how we run the chapter, and anyone is welcome at any time for ADCO. Meetings are 100% free. You can drop in and see what we do. There's also plenty of other opportunities. We have our monthly meetings on Zoom. Students attend meetings free. We are always looking for new volunteers, and if you are going to join, make sure you join at the Florida chapter specifically. It's a little bit wonky because we were originally the Orlando chapter, so you'll find Florida under where O should be. make sure you select our chapter if you're going to do that. There's also the STC Summit, which hopefully we'll be getting details on that soon. I haven't seen any yet, but keep an eye out. We also have some employment information, which there will be a slide on that in a second. And there's also the newsletter memo to members, which I am the editor for. I'd be happy to publish whatever you have to send me. And I'll put some plug text in chat for y'all. Our remainder of the chapter year's programming is on the screen for those who wish to hear it. It's February. We're going to be having a presentation on technical communication and marketing. March is our regular employment panel. In April, there will be a presentation on AI. In May, there will be a presentation called Talk Like a Girl, which is about assertive communication. And in June, we'll have our end of year social and elections. If you need a job or need to fill a job, please let us know and we will help you. You can also contact our employment chair, Nicole Lundquist. Your email is on screen for you. The summit, just to touch on it real quickly, is a premier conference for technical communicators, technical communication, education, and networking, and brings together like-minded individuals to grow their knowledge of the technical communication field.
And then I'll talk a little bit about FTC. Hello, everyone. My name is Chantal Cyrier. I'm the president for FTC, and I'm glad that we could, like we do every year, partner with STC Florida for this joint meeting. To go ahead and get into it, FTC stands for Future Technical Communicators. We are an RSO, a registered student organization at UCF, and we're open to all students regardless of major and some recent alumni. I'll go over 4 pieces of news and opportunities today. So our FTC meetings, these are the backbone of our club. They include guest speaker presentations and Q&As, professional development workshops, discussions, and fun socials. Our meetings are free and open to all, and they are primarily held online on Zoom. We do have some general body meetings that are hybrid, and then our socials tend to be in person, but we offer online socials as well. Our next FTC meeting, our February general body meeting, will be the 19th at 7 p.m. We'll have a guest speaker, John Hedke, speaking on the topic captive versus freelance. So excited for that. Next, the STC TechCom Summit. Julia talked a little bit about it, and each year FTC attends the summit, the International TechCom Conference. This is always a great opportunity. I can speak to it myself. It definitely gives great opportunities and knowledge to our students that you can't get in a lecture room. The location and dates have not yet been announced for this summit, but when they do, we will start planning to go to it. So in those efforts, we will be doing fundraising to help make going to the conference attainable for everyone in our club who wants to go. If you would like to support, follow us. Look out soon for a potential merch sale and then an online fundraiser once we get into planning to go to that event. Jobs and internships. We share job opportunities with our members. That's one of the additional ways we help prepare our members for getting their technical communication career off the ground. So we have connections with companies such as Lockheed Martin and L3Harris. So you can join our Discord server, follow us on LinkedIn, and become a member, join our mailing list to receive updates for job opportunities with companies such as those and more. Finally, leadership and volunteering opportunities. We are currently gathering interest for new student leaders for the next school year. It is already farther into this spring semester than I would even think possible. So we're starting to get prepared for the next school year. Um, Leadership with FTC helps you expand your technical communication skills, exposes you to portfolio and resume development opportunities, and is in general a great way to get more involved. I can definitely attest to FTC leadership. I joined it when I joined FTC by joining the communications committee, and it's definitely has opened up technical communication opportunities. But beyond that, it's been really rewarding to be able to be involved and be a part of a community like this. So if you are interested, let us know in the chat or email us ucf.ftc@gmail.com. If you're interested in leadership or just want to get connected with us in general, there's also the Linktree link, so I will drop both of those in the chat.
Thank you, Chantal. If you wouldn't mind pinning our speakers for tonight, that would be really helpful. And our panel tonight is Veronica, Susan, and Alec. If you wouldn't mind going in the order on screen for us to make things a little bit easier, and introduce yourselves, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am Veronica Joyner. I am a assistant professor at UCF. I teach technical communication here at UCF. I also research technical communication exigencies, situations, focusing a lot on user experience and also social justice and technical communication, which um, is a very rich area of interest for me. My PhD is in writing and rhetoric. I earned that at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia, where I also taught technical communication. I was a full-time tech comm instructor at Howard University before I took the job here at UCF for 3 years. It really went by fast. It was a lovely experience. And now um, I am working with the Black Health Commission as a member of their board, advising on all things related to technical communication, public communication, marketing, fundraising opportunities, grant writing, and those types of things. So I was really excited when I got an email inviting me to come and talk to you all today because I love FTC. I think this organization is so impressive, and how you connect with businesses and really get a lot of programming done every year. I'm always impressed by. So I'm glad to be here, and I think that's all I have to say as an introduction. Hope that's enough.
Wow, how do I follow that? Veronica, well done. Whew. So I'm Susan Kelly. I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of these young people at STC Summit, which was a fabulous time. I'm located in the greater Baltimore, DC area, but I work completely remotely. So I liked hearing some of the stories of those of you who still do that because I work for Medidata, which is a clinical trials data analytics company. So we get to wear the white hats in the clinical medical field, doing lots of research and helping bring vaccines and treatments to patients all over the globe. And I am a senior information content strategist for that company. Love what I do. But before that, for about 20 years, I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I did my graduate work and then hung around for a while to teach at Carnegie Mellon University, worked in user-centric design and human-computer interaction, designing all of the web content so that we could figure out exactly where to make everyone click on which screen and drive their content needs. And then when my kids got old enough and they were sort of out on their own and I could move to wherever I wanted to, I thought I would move a little further south and work in public industry and get into the health and clinical care space, which I really, really enjoy. Anytime that Chantal or John reach out to me and say, hey, can you pitch in? I tend to say yes, because they're pretty fantastic folks. So happy to be here and looking forward to chatting with all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm Alex Garcia. I use he and elle pronouns. I have been around FTC, STC for the past 21 years. It's incredible to say that, but yeah, it's time flies. It's 2025 now. I started pretty much at this meeting in 2004 at the student union when it was fully on campus. Nothing virtual. So I'm a proud UCF alumnus. Been in Orlando pretty much since I came to UCF. And at UCF, I received a double bachelor's degree in English Technical Communication and Engineering Technology, Space Science Technology. I used the English degree kind of to for my sanity, let's say, because there was a lot of math and physics, and I really, really enjoyed writing, and I took to it. It was first a minor, and then I was like, I'm too far into this engineering degree. Let's just make them both degrees, and got to walk twice, and I think it was worth it because as I'll mention a little bit later, in the aerospace and defense industry where I've been pretty much my entire career, it makes sense if you're technically minded, and so you get to geek out on all the technology. So that's what pretty much I do every day. So again, this is a homecoming for me. Awesome for Chantal and everybody else to ask me to speak. So a little bit about my career. Started as a space shuttle ground support equipment engineer at Kennedy Space Center, right out of college as a co-op program. And when the shuttle ended in 2011, I used my STC contacts. Dan Voss, who was instrumental in my career and a great mentor, he hired me for Lockheed Martin as a proposal editor contractor. And it was trial by fire. So it was 8 weeks, 7 days a week, 12-hour days. Because it was a must-win proposal that we did end up winning, and it's one of our premier programs now. So that was drinking by the fire hose of, somebody who'd been with the company for, at that time, 20, 30 years. So it was an incredible learning opportunity. After that year as a contractor, I was hired on full-time with Lockheed Martin, and I've risen from a level 1 tech writer to now technical publications lead. So it's been quite the journey. So in the meantime, I've become an expert in the 12 elements of integrated logistics support or integrated product support, depending on who you talk to. And the 2 elements that are relevant to us are technical documentation and training. So as far as STC, I've done pretty much all the ATCO positions. I was president for 2 years in 2016. And in 2023, I was honored with the rank of STC Associate Fellow. So I always look for any opportunity to give back to STC. And then this past year, I recently took a step back from the chapter to focus on leading the Pride Business Resource Group at Lockheed Martin, Missiles and Fire Control. So I'm all about leadership and mentoring. So happy to be here.
Thank you. We're happy to have all 3 of you. And I'll start off our prepared questions with, sorry, I'm looking off to my other screen. What initially drew you to the industry you work in, and how was your perception of that industry changed with experience?
Okay, so I'm just gonna go first every time. Alrighty. Well, I was I was honestly drawn to like academia, like being a professor a long time ago as an undergraduate English student. Like that was my path. It's pretty similar to a lot of the students in FTC, I think. Um, I did English. I got my master's in literature, and then I went to get a PhD in writing and rhetoric, thinking more about composition than technical communication. Um, because my professors always seemed so knowledgeable. They knew all sorts of things. I kind of wanted to emulate that ethos. But as far as technical communication is concerned, I kind of came around to TechCom as I progressed through my PhD program. I was really drawn to the material nature of technical communication, the way that TechCom helps people take action and get things done. It felt a lot more down to earth and um, worthwhile to me in the moment and continues to fulfill me for that same reason, because I think when I study technical communication, where it happens, how it's used, how it can be used most effectively, I'm doing that because I want it to affect people's lives, the processes they have to go through, and all those sorts of things. Um, so has my perception of academia changed since I kind of came around to TechCom? I would say it has a little bit. Um, I'm not quite as uh, naively enamored with the academy as I once was. Um, but I still see a role for academia and industry to like get together kind of more often, but in very concrete ways that lead to change, like on both sides. Um, I think a lot of academics study situations where TechCom happens and think about ways that it could change, but we don't always have the opportunities to get in there and change it because we're busy teaching and researching from our areas. Um, I I'm very interested in in seeing how much closer we can get with industry, not just for seeing how we're supposed to teach our students accordingly, which is very important, um, but also for, bringing some of our insights to the table as well.
So
That's
I
it.
can go next. So as I mentioned earlier, I've always kind of been a geek. So it was a natural progression to get both the engineering degree and the tech writing degree, and kind of bring those two worlds together. I did a few years, like I mentioned, at the Space Center as an engineer, so I understood kind of the real technical aspects behind a shop, basically, a shop environment. And then I took that knowledge into the rest of my career so far with technical communication, where I understand that shop environment and how maintenance and operation of very complicated systems need to need to happen, right? And the so it's just a matter of, in the defense industry, I think we emphasize the technical part of technical writing. So you gotta have a geekiness and a curiosity about you. So that's what I would say.
Wow. So for me, I gotta say, if I back up a little bit, this is definitely not where I was headed at the beginning. This was not in the cards for me. And in fact, when I first went to college, I was headed there as an elementary education major. And then I discovered pretty quickly that as much as I liked children, I didn't want a room of like 25 of them all at once. Like one or two at a time was great, but 20, that was miserable to have like a bunch. And so I switched my major to theater. Um, And all of my kids now are still in the performing arts. And so, so my early education was all in theater, which later on translated into being a good, professor. But I took a big pause. I should have had the key, the thing that, like, I went to, I started college in the late 80s, and I was one of the only ones who trotted off to college with an Apple II GS computer with me, like big old bulky thing, because I was fascinated by that, but I also was like, really into writing and stuff. And I also took a big binder filled with floppy disks for Print Shop Pro. I had the whole thing with me because I like to play around with that. But I had no idea that someday that was going to land me here. I had this really circuitous path. So I had like my little theater degree, and then, I became a mom and I started my life doing that. And I was, dedicated to that. So it wasn't until I went back to school, and like Veronica, I studied rhetoric. And, I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of dabble in this. I just knew that I wanted to go to grad school and I wanted to keep learning and doing stuff. And, yeah, and I still even then wasn't sure what I was going to do. And so I started teaching human computer interaction, and I was, there at Carnegie Mellon, and I was like, somehow I have to figure out this creativity thing and this, this other thing that I do. Because to me, technical and computer and software was all like, that was zeros and ones, and that was binary. And that was, like Alex said, it was this geeky part. And I was like, that is so not me. That's just not me. I couldn't figure out how they mixed at all. And it wasn't until I realized that there is an art to communicating the geeky side, the technical side. I was like, oh, no. It takes people like me to explain to people who don't understand the tech. And it was in that teaching and in that human computer interaction. And I'll be very, very honest with you, when it happened was when Agile came on the scene, when software companies started moving from waterfall, where it was like, oh, we developed this thing and now we're all done, and now the technical writers have to explain it. When Agile methodology came along, I was like, wait. I get to sit in the room while you guys are like coming up with a cool idea for a piece of software, and I get to like talk to you about the design. That's really, really intriguing to me. I want to be part of that. Like, I don't want to wait until you hand it off and then I write the manual. That's awful. That sounds terrible. So when I was asked to start teaching Agile methodology, I was like, here we go, game on. Now I'm ready. So that was what drew me to the industry. That's when I was like, now there is a seat for me at the table. And that was all the way back to undergrad, why I took this Apple II GS and this Print Shop Pro, that I was like, now it makes sense to me. It's not all computers and it's not all writing. It's part of being the game. It's everybody there in the same room. And that's still the thing that I really enjoy, is at the very beginning, we have a concept of how to design a piece of software. And I'm in the room with those developers going, but wait, what if we do this? What if we do that? And a lot of the time they're like, Susan, sit down, like, stop it. We can't build that thing, and I'm like, but what if we did, and sometimes 10 iterations down the line, they're like, hey, guess what? We're building that thing that you talked about. And that's where it gets exciting to me. So the industry has changed demonstrably. And anybody who's heard me speak at STC, because now we've got AI, and now I'm all about prompt engineering and prompt tuning. And there's this marriage between the technical and the creative. So I still do a lot of creative writing. I'm obviously a very animated speaker because I get all like, oh my God, just wait for this thing. So I think that's probably the biggest shift in the industry, is now there's room for those of us who are creatives, but also understand technical. It's a really great space to be in. So when I still teach some community college courses or do some tutoring, and I'm like, hey, English majors, you don't have to just be teachers. Did you know that? Like, you don't have to just go teach high school. And you can go home and tell your parents, I'm not going to write the Great American Novel. I'm going to write the Great American Technical Manual. So it's a lot more fun. Yeah, I like the
Thanks,
person who
Marcia.
Miranda wrote, Agile changed the game. It absolutely did. Yeah, it changed everything. You're right.
Let's see. One of our next questions is, what knowledge and or skills should someone possess or expect to learn to get into your industry?
So I would say be comfortable in an industrial environment, both dealing with hardware and then software that integrates that hardware. Be comfortable in that type of environment. Be comfortable in far off locations, because sometimes you will have to go visit your customer in some uncomfortable areas, uncomfortable, and by that I mean austere locations where they are actually using the equipment. And so you just need to be prepared for that type of trip sometime. Just be open to learning is my biggest thing. I'm lucky enough in my team to be embedded with engineers, so I get to lean on them and learn from them as much as I can while I'm developing what we're developing. So it's I would just say keep an open mind, and again, I'll lead with what I was saying earlier, just be geeky, right? So
I'll go
go
second
ahead.
this time and let Veronica clean up on it. So to be a software tech writer anyway, because like I was interested in Alex saying like go to these austere locations and stuff, which for defense is very different from what I do in software. So that's interesting to me, Alex. I might have gone into defense had I known that. But like for me, I think what's really interesting, what I have to possess is like this unshakable desire to learn what I don't know. Uh, because I started as a technical writer working in mainframe, and I legit, the only reason I swear that I got the job was that I was willing to say, look, I don't know anything about mainframe, but I do know how to balance calendars. I do know how to like manage a household and an academic calendar, and I can do. So I was willing to say, I don't know that, but what I do know is I have perfect grammar and amazing syntax, so here's what I bring to the table. Can you show me the other thing? So if you want to be a good software technical writer, it is so rapidly changing. Like by the time I go to work tomorrow, some iteration of what our team put together will have changed. So I need to be willing to step in and say, what changed? What's new? What's different? Holy cow, especially in something like clinical trials. Are you kidding me? The target moves all the time. So I think the skill that I need to bring is an unflappable desire to admit that I don't know stuff, and dig in, roll up my sleeves and say, hey, I don't know, teach me something. And likewise, the ability to teach other people what I do know. I'm consulted all the time on what is the best way to say this? How do we approach this? So I think that's really it, is that willingness to push, pull in learning, to say, these are my skills and they're very small. Those are your skills. They are also very small. That's the skill I'd have to have, is to say, I'm willing to do that exchange.
Ooh, I'm so glad you let me go last because I was taking notes. Because, a good part of, what I'm doing, especially when I'm teaching these graduate classes and even the undergraduate classes, is trying to prepare people to do what you all do, or some iteration of that, right? So I appreciate that much insight. For to go into academia for TechCom in particular is it's kind of weird actually, because you also have to be geeky. I think I've yet to meet somebody that I work with that's not geeky in some way. You have to be like curious about the way things work and how documents help those things happen. In my own in my own little sphere, it's like community organizing and looking at how TechCom helps social justice movements work, and also looking at how TechCom inhibits forward progress. And so in that way, I'm being curious. I'm always looking at situations and saying, okay, yeah, I don't like I'm on the board of the Black Health Commission. When I joined, I was like, I don't know how to be a board member. I don't know how to do this. So it's very much in line with what you all are saying. And then there are the kind of academic expectations you would, think are part of the deal, right? So yes, you need to be able to write. You have to have a grasp of grammar. If you don't have a perfect grasp of grammar, you need to know how to fix your grammar when it's time to fix it, right? If you don't have that automatic ear for what's expected. You have to know how to look for what people are already saying about things, because a lot of academia is a lot of what we do is talking about the research we will do, talking about the research we're doing, talking about the research we did. Um, and so part of talking about it is knowing who else is doing similar things, who else is talking about similar things. So you always need to be, not always reading everything, but always reading something, always making sure that you're like keeping up with at least the conversations that are relevant to the part of TechCom that you're focused on. Yeah, and then getting primary research skills is important too. Sometimes those research skills come hard, like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then now I'm on a research team and I'm getting to understand how it's done. And sometimes you just put yourself out there and plan a research study and ask for money, and somebody gives it to you and you do not know why. But you do the research. Well, you know why you asked for it, but you do the research and you find the answers to the questions that you had, and that part of the primary research is it's a huge portion of being in the kind of academic scholarly part of TechCom. Yeah. So secondary research skills, primary research skills, and then everything everybody else said.
And I will add a little bit. So defense is by its very nature very structured, right? So their contract requirements, and so you need to know how to be able to read a contract, and know to the letter of the T exactly what is in the contract and what the customer wants, because that you're going to be held to those standards. And it's all based in XML. Though there are some Microsoft Word files still, since it is the government runs very slowly, and it changes very slowly. And so even though I learned this 20 years ago in college, I still use Microsoft Word styles every single day, when I'm not in the XML environment. So all of the skills that you're learning in the technical documentation classes at UCF, hopefully we're still learning Microsoft Word styles and maybe some XML coding lumped in there.
I can agree that we still do have some Microsoft Word files.
Yeah. And we've definitely had some conversations about which classes we have XML in, and what new languages, if any, we should be trying to teach people.
You have one more prepared questions, and I've seen some already coming in through chat. We're going to save those for the end. So our final prepared question is, what makes technical communication in this industry different from other industries?
The biggie. Yeah, go, Veronica.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think the academic part is like pretty different from like the industry aspect of it, in a lot of ways. In some ways that I wish were different than others, right? So like, I don't feel like we get enough chance to like really get in there sometimes and do tech comm in different environments other than education, which is still highly rich, but but I think also for me, it's always like a wanting to learn and do tech comm as a technical communicator, but also wanting to demonstrate tech comm in the way that I interact with students, always like being the example of how you do this well. Always taking the opportunity to teach a lesson, even if, and taking I would say the privilege to teach a lesson, even if a lesson was not asked for. Because I'm the teacher, I'm the professor, I get to do that. And sometimes I really like it, and other times, Um, but I think that that duality of trying to teach something that you're not always getting a chance to do in environments other than the environment you're in, and trying to stay, abreast and up to date with the things that are going on in the research and the practice is it feels unique to me because I'm always, trying to balance okay, this is what I know about the industry, this is what I know about teaching, and then this is how I have to um, interact with students in a way that is always demonstrating tech, professional and technical communication rather than just telling them about it. It's a lot of living the work, it feels like. And I don't know if that's different for industry, but it feels like a different thing to me.
So I will say the biggest difference I think in aerospace and defense is the security aspects. And so and I already see Julia nodding her head. It's a secure environment, right? And so that um, imposes some inconveniences into your life. It's depending on the level of clearance that you achieve. Um, as an example, depending on the level of clearance, you might have to clear with your customer whether 30 days in advance whether you can leave the country or not, and there might be certain countries that you can't set foot in under any circumstances. So so having that type of access to information, definitely it's you have to understand the realities that come with it, and but it's unlike any other industry in that you get to be at the forefront of incredible technology that at the end of the day is defense, right? So that's what we do. So but yeah, it's sometimes it's inconvenient, but it makes perfect sense to protect that information.
Yeah, those are such cool answers. Like I love kind of, sitting over here where I sit and comparing those two, especially because, I work again in data analytics. So I'm a little bit adjacent to where Alex is, in that in my particular brand of software, we deal with personally identifiable information for patients. We have a lot of, health data, that sort of thing. Before that, I worked in mainframe banking. So we had, personal finance information. There are, of course, software fields that you could work in that are like, Salesforce or, gaming that would have a lot less security and that sort of thing. But I think in software in general, the thing that makes it different from academia or defense is the rapid pace of change and the fact that we pivot so quickly, so quickly. Like I remember when I was teaching, I could write a 15-week syllabus and I could map that out. And even Alex said, like, they have a structured plan for things. There's no such thing as a plan in software. It's really, it's very agile, it's very mobile. So if you like the kind of atmosphere where, our projects really move in a very fluid kind of way. Just like I was saying before, that, you know, I might say something like, yeah, it'd be really cool if we could turn that button to blue instead of yellow. And somebody else, one of the developers, thinks on that for a while, and our UX designer thinks on that for a while. So 3 weeks later, they're like, hey, you know what? It's going to be yellow. And I'm like, those kinds of things are fun. You've seen the photos and things of Silicon Valley offices where there are ping pong tables and foosball, and that is real. When I do go to our New York offices, that's the atmosphere, and it's really all about making walls into whiteboards and things. The pace is different. The energy is different. That in mind, the stability is also different. In academia, lots of people get a job, stay in that job for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whether it's at the same university or not. There is a certain laddering that's like, I am a professor. I will be a professor. I remain so. The same thing in defense, whether you're working for the government or you're working for a government contract, it tends to be, there's a longevity factor. Do not go into software if you're not prepared to switch jobs every 3 to 5 years. If that level of change and churn does not appeal to you, this is not your job. It's fully expected that every 3 years or so, you'll look for a new job, because that's the way to make more money and get more projects and be more interesting. You won't lose your job. Don't get me wrong. I could stay exactly where I am for the next 10 years if I wanted to get about a 3% raise every year. But if I want to be exciting and I want to work on new projects and I want to make a lot of money, probably within the next year or two, I need to go on the market and look for something else and gain new skills and gain new things, so that's a different part of the software technical writing industry as well. We move things around a lot, and that's not a risk that a lot of people are willing to take. But it's exciting if you like it.
Yeah, thank you for the responses for all of those questions. Like Dr. Joyner was for the second question, I've been taking a lot of good notes, so it was great to hear all of your insights with all of those. We're going to jump into the opening up the Q&A, so feel free to put your questions in the chat. You can also unmute yourself. I have been collecting the questions already in the chat. So we'll start with Magdalene's question. How has integrating into constant new softwares and new AI been as far as changes in your job, mentality, and process?
Oh, wow. I'll say that again. I feel like that was mostly in my direction. And
So it kind of is, but if Dr. Joyner or Alex have
yeah.
So it's how is integrating constant new softwares, including AI, been as far as changes to your job, mentality, and process?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I fully understood there. Absolutely. And I'm sure this impacts both of you as well. But yeah, for me, it's interesting, right? Because we definitely use AI both as a generative AI tool in writing and also in some of our analytics. To be fair, the products that I write for are called performance analytics, study feasibility, and protocol optimization in my tool set that I write for. All three of those use artificial intelligence as predictive modeling. So I have to be aware of trends in artificial intelligence and neural networks as part of my job. And then I'm also aware of them as their capability for writing tools, which means that I'm not afraid of what AI can do for us as tech writers at all. And I have found an awful lot of technical writers and practitioners in the field who are like, ooh, it's not reliable, or, oh, it's going to take our jobs, or those things. And I find all of that to be unfair. What we do have to do is look at generative artificial intelligence as not our replacement, but our intern. It's still learning. And the same way that I would take, a college freshman in an early composition class and nurture that and help that student along to really refine their skills, I approach generative AI in the same way and go, you're just there, you're helping me out, you're learning this. But I'm also very brave and say, okay, come on, let's pop the lid off this thing and see what you got. The same way that I would do with a college freshman as well, and be like, what potential do you have? Because unless I unleash you, we're never going to know what you are capable of. Businesses, government, especially I would think in the defense industry, are reluctant to say, let's pop the lid off. But there are areas that we can do that. Anybody at any phase in your career, and I was thinking especially of the woman who was like, I have an educational objective in my goals, make that objective to learn some prompt engineering, some prompt tuning, figure out what you can and cannot do within the limits of artificial intelligence, because it's not going away. It's like your television, they thought that was a fad too, but it wasn't. So I'm not sure if that fully answered the question, but I tried.
Yeah, that was definitely great answer to the question, at least for me. I know you touched on, defense is a bit more reluctant. Do you, Alex, or Dr. Joyner for academia have anything to add to that?
So I will say that at least at Lockheed Martin, we've been going through they started calling it a digital transformation for the past probably 10 years. We're finally seeing the fruit of that. Some software that's coming online that's going to make some of the mundane tasks that we have to do sometimes, automate those tasks and free us up for some more productive time. So I'm looking forward to getting some of my time back, as they say. So, but to Susan's point, definitely the, the pace in the defense industry, especially with long-term programs, it moves pretty slowly because you got to make sure that whatever you're designing works the first time, right? So, and a lot of times there's only one opportunity for it to work.
And I can say I'm equal. I wouldn't say equal parts. It depends on what day of the week it is, honestly. If I'm using AI for myself, I'm super excited about it. Um, I'm happy to be doing it. I'm wanting to also like pop a little, like, what can I do with this? How can I um like what kind of things can it do? Because I want to see what it can do. Like, what can I show my students that it can do? Like, how can we play with it? How can we compare different, LLMs, Gemini, Copilot. We were playing around with Llama and uh, the OG. Yep, thank you. It was right there. Um, and and that's fun. Like I like that. But when I'm grading and I'm getting a bunch of essays that are just, I did not even look at your assignment. I just gave your assignment to ChatGPT and gave it back to you. And I'm like, didn't we just have a conversation about like
Yeah.
prompt engineering? Like I'm having these conversations and it's so sometimes it makes me a little grumpy. Um, but other times I'm having a great time. Like we had a great time in class playing with those different prompts and having it give us um, an email to our roommate about putting the toilet seat down in Old English, like right. So
Nice.
um, we have a good time, right? But then I have to slow them down and like, see, we're having a good time, but it's not so much that there are limits to what AI can do because the limits are always going to change. But you always need to know what you're trying to accomplish. You always have to have a very concrete goal in mind and parameters for how you want to get there before you use this tool and just let it do whatever it wants to do. Um, and that's where I'm finding the most pushback is in the being super critical and deliberate about how they use the tools.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
for me, it's a good time. I love it.
Well, shameless plug here. At some point in 2025, a couple of other colleagues and I have, even those of us who are practitioners occasionally dabble in the academic here, and we've got an article coming out in the Journal of Technical Writing and Communication. So yeah, we submit to peer-reviewed journals too to see where we can, push the field. So hopefully, for all of you, that'll be a little bit helpful. And we'll see. And the whole idea is how to use or the parameters of AI in the tech writing classroom. It's like, because we get it. That's a hard thing to wrap
Yeah.
your head around, but it's even going to be more difficult to produce a whole bunch of students with no experience in how to use it. Like, because what are you going to do? That would be like doing an entire curriculum and no experience in XML and being like, well, we didn't think that was wise to use in the classroom. You'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how do you graduate now from a program with no data, no XML, no, like what? You can't. But when I went to school, I didn't learn data, like,
No, I did that on Linda on my own because
right?
where was I going to learn that in a
Yes.
writing and rhetoric PhD? I was not.
Yeah. So,
We did play around with bots. That was
yeah.
so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that article.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will
I
ping
can't.
you. Yeah.
Please do. I would
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's always been interesting the last couple of years seeing where AI is going, and like you all said, it's definitely such a great tool, but you need to learn how to use it like any other tool. So the next question is from Lauren, specifically for Dr. Joyner, and Lauren took the question out of my mouth, so I'm glad it was asked. You mentioned TechCom and social justice. Can you elaborate on the impact of TechCom and the type of role someone can play for social justice causes?
Ooh, okay. So it's a really broad array of options and ways that social justice and tech comm kind of intermingle. Um, so when I am looking at social justice and tech comm, for my specific purposes, it's more community-based technical communication. And I am particularly focused on organizations that are that have social justice ends, right? And so I'm looking at how TechCom helps them move those things forward, or how it can be a hindrance. For instance, I've looked at the freedom schools from kind of like the civil rights era and after, and the way TechCom in particular notes and the way they kept notes actually helped those schools run and operate, and the way other forms of technical communication in the form of red tape, formalities, and the way those documents were circulated and used by the people who created them and then like process them to one result or the other, right? So like we're really looking at the nitty gritty of just TechCom as it exists in social justice situations. So that's one way of looking at it. And then there are other folks that will look specifically at kind of the way documents are used to inhibit the way processes use communication to inhibit progress. My favorite example of an article about social justice and TechCom is technologies of disenfranchisement. If you've been in any of my classes, I've probably had you read this article, although typically not the graduate students, but a lot of my undergraduate students, I make read this article because it does a really good rhetorical analysis of the way the documents were used in order to highlight the way a document can seem kind of neutral, like it doesn't do anything, and then be used in these bad ways. And then have a discussion about how it could have been written differently to like not do that, or how people could have used it differently or reacted to it in social justice movements that also use instructional manuals and lessons to kind of overcome those hurdles. And so when you're studying social justice and TechCom, you can kind of take one angle or the other. I have chosen to focus really on how, as a technical communication scholar and technical communicator, I can support social justice movements through the Black Health Commission. Like that's my focus. So I'm focused on, how I can use my skills on proposal writing, seeking fundraising opportunities, advising them on like messaging and annual impact statements and all of those genres and documents that help them run and help them succeed. And then writing about how that works and doesn't work. I've also looked at some hiring practices in terms of like diversity and hiring. Luckily, I got my funding a couple years ago for that, so I'm not at risk of losing it all of a sudden, and that's awesome too. So yeah,
What was the name of that article again?
Technologies of Disenfranchisement. It's from 2008. The authors are Natasha Jones and Miriam Williams, and it's in Technical Communication Quarterly.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to look that up because I don't think we read that when I was in.
Really? You were
I
in 4293?
I forget the code.
Document and project management?
No, I was in the oh, it was the rhetorical analysis type of tech comp.
Oh, writing style.
Yes, writing style. That was it.
Oh, I should have made y'all read that too.
That's
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to read it now, so it's all good.
Good.
But thank you for that answer. Our next question is from Rolanda. So she's coming from more of the creative writing background with her English degree. So she's asking, how do you upskill in tech writing as far as getting the skills needed for the job search? How do you and then kind of a two-part question, and then as far as picking a niche, how do you go about that, especially if you're at the point where you have little or no experience?
Well, I think I would start by saying don't pick a niche. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have a lot of experience, don't specialize. And spend a lot of time on LinkedIn learning. Like I think that would go a long way, to pick up various skills, right? Because that's a very public place to get some skills, whether it's some simple Python coding or there are a lot of certifications that are available there now in things like prompt engineering or some coding things or leadership. Like there are a lot of, there are a lot of small certificates, that you can then post very publicly on your LinkedIn profile. I got a new certification in this. I got another certification in this. They're really good about badges and things, but I think I would steer clear of specializing. I think I would try to be as broad as possible for now. Yeah. Unless there's something you're really super interested in. Like if there's something they're like, man, I can't wait to write about, air pressure in tires and you want to go get a job at National Tire and Battery. Like if you're really, really interested in something, of course, head toward that. But otherwise, I think I would be like, I can do a little bit of everything. Yeah, I see Veronica nodding her head.
Yeah,
I think
I second that one. Yeah. Be as much of a generalist as you can until you find your niche later on.
yeah. And then, yeah, and both of you guys, Alex, Veronica, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like, then the moment you get an interview, go back to that thing that I said about like, hey, I don't know anything about, like, let's do this National Tire and Battery, right? Like, so let's say you get an interview with NTB and they're like, we need a technical writer who knows about tires. You can go in there and say, listen, I don't know a lot about tires, but I am willing to learn everything about tires because I know a lot about tech writing and I know a lot about grammar and I'm a mighty fine person to work with, and I will do everything I can in the next 60 days to learn everything about it, right? Like just go in there with all of the energy that says, you guys know about tires, but I know about tech writing. So teach me what I need to know about tires and I'll teach the world about your, like just bring all of that to the table and be like, you don't need somebody who knows about tires. You need somebody who knows about tech writing. I'm your girl. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, it does also support my position as because we can't teach you every little thing you might need to learn on the job, right? We can teach you how to learn. We can teach you how to be curious when you get there. We can teach you how to talk to subject matter experts to get clarifying information so that you can do what you're supposed to do. But like, yeah, no, I teach a class full of computer science students in writing for the technical professional, and I don't know that much about computer science. And like I throw out random phrases just to like throw them off, and I mostly use them incorrectly because then, they're like, no, that it works like this. And I'm like, oh, tell me. Oh, I would know that better if that was communicated to me in the way you just did it, right? So like it's it's always about bringing the expertise that you have and focusing, get new expertise all day long. Um, and I've said this for resumes too. Don't tell them what you don't have.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, I know you said like, I don't know anything about this. And in the interview, that's a different thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But don't write it down in the cover letter, right?
Oh
I
gosh,
may
no.
not know anything about this. I may not have experience in this. No, no, no. You come there and you like, I have all the experience in the world in writing sentences so that people can understand them, and
Yes.
making infographics and
Yep.
flyers and visualizations. And I know how to do it so that you won't get sued and those kinds of things, right? Um, that's what you bring when you bring that language
Right.
expertise to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying about tell them like, listen, I know everything that you're going to want me to know about grammar. And in fact, I think I was really bold and I was like, listen, when your documentation goes out, it will not have a grammatical or a spelling or a syntactical error. I assure you. You teach me what I need to know about mainframe computing, and I will make sure your documentation is clean as a whistle. Boom. Like
Yep.
I was supremely confident with them about like, it will not have a mistake, because I'm like, look, you got you bring Veronica's absolutely right. Bring to the table every skill that you have, and then let them tell you, like, all right, we need you to know about tires. You can be like, good, you teach me about tires. Here are all the 25 things that I can do. I just need you to tell me about tires. That's it.
Okay.
There's one tiny little thing I don't do. Yeah.
I might jump in real quick. I know I'm not a panelist, but from having been in that position of I need a job, I have no experience. What do I do? I really wanted to do software and tried to get a job on my own for several months with zero success and got to a point of I need a job, I need health insurance, I will take whatever you give me. Just please, someone just give me a chance. And took the first offer I got simply so that I could say, hey, I have a job, I now have experience, and I can later move to the next job and say, hey, look at all this experience I already have. Don't you want to hire me? Except obviously not exactly like that.
Yeah. Yeah, never overlook the fact that like I didn't want to work in mainframe. It's super dull, but I gained a lot of experience. I had great references, and certainly when I walked into the next job, they were more than willing to say, Susan's a rock star. And I was like, yes, I am, so Julia's absolutely right. Like, sure, take whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those insights since technical writing, we're bridging the worlds really between communications and the whatever technical we're working with at the moment. I really like the showcasing your expertise and then your ability and keenness to learn about whatever the job happens to be. Our next question, so for Dr. Joyner, does UCF have an advisory board specifically for its TechCom programs?
Not one that I've met with. I don't think so. I think a lot of our interaction with industry comes through kind of the connection to STC rather than an official advisory board. I am familiar with advisory boards because we did have one at George Mason, and it was helpful. But I will say also, the relationship FTC has with STC, I think, has provided not the same amount of insights in the same exact way, but the same like value in insights and relationships between, because what we were trying to establish at George Mason was the kind of relationships that FTC has with STC, in terms of professional networking and learning opportunities and volunteer opportunities.
So, you know, while we don't have a specific advisory board, and maybe this is my 3rd year here, I can tell you my first year, I just like came to class and did my thing, and like I went home until I got really into things. So there might be something I'm unaware of. I don't want to like say no, we don't have one, and then someone pop up and be like, actually, but I don't think we have one. Um, I do think that a lot of what we want to know about industry, we are learning through that relationship with STC, and it's very helpful. I've seen these things like brought up in faculty meetings, like, well, you know, I've heard them discuss these things at the STC-FTC meetings, and I want to make sure we're staying up to date. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can say from the student perspective, I love the partnership with STC. I didn't pick UCF, you know, for the Tech Com program because I came in as a musical education major. But I am so glad I ended up here just because I love that relationship, and it has definitely helped me a lot start to figure out what I want to do and get the skills to get there. So the next question from Lauren, is there room for tech? And I saw there was some answering of this in the chat. Is there room for tech comm professionals to make a mistake? Is there still human error? What does that look like? And what are the consequences?
So I mentioned in the chat, the consequence could be a warranty repair, especially if you're working in product support, logistics support, and you have a technical manual out in the field and something happens in the field and a piece of hardware gets damaged, then the customer can say, hey, you need to fix this on the company's dime as a warranty repair. So.
I mean,
Yeah, go.
I don't, you know, I'm not working in, you know, data or defense or any of those things. I know in the way that I grade and give feedback, there's always room for like a mistake here or there. Like even the most prestigious journals, I have read articles in their journals that had a typo here and there, or the wrong use of there or your, you know, something that you know, but you just didn't see it at the time. And a whole bunch of other eyes didn't see it either. It happens. I think I saw a comment in there about it that's just like you admit that, oops, you know, it's a little embarrassing when you're the word person to mess a word up. But you're like, oh, I got that. I can fix that. And it, you know, it's not that big a deal. But of course, if you're making mistakes on super important documentation, mistakes that lead to errors, um, you don't want to let that happen if you can help it.
Yeah, in our industry, you know, we in the documentation, we're highly regulated for starters. So if any of you were ever considering participating in a clinical trial, let me assure you, things are highly regulated. It's not just experimental. We're very, very closely monitored. So that one, go ahead, sign up for a clinical trial. You're doing yourself a favor and the whole world. But secondary to that, we have to issue something called a note to file that says, hey, we messed up, and we have to acknowledge to the world that we messed up. I have to do versioning. Like I have to write in my documentation, my name is on it. So my reputation is at stake. It's in my best interest to make sure that it's correct, accurate, to the best of my knowledge every single time. You know, my digital signature is on this documentation, because if it is inaccurate or incorrect, you know, it's me. But then if it is one of those things and I made a technical mistake beyond like a minor typo or a misplaced apostrophe or something, then I issue a revision that says, I revised it on this date. Why did I revise it? Not because I lied, but because I'm a human being. And I think that's always going to be the case. And in fact, if we loop back around to the artificial intelligence thing, right? Those of us who work in AI, we know that all of these models are trained on imperfect data to begin with. We harvested all of this, all of the pool of our training data came from the whole pool of the internet. So it's already biased, it's already incorrect, and we're busy, you know, fixing it, making those modifications. So even when we rely on machines, still not going to be perfect, right? Never. That's why we have things like automotive recalls and, machine repairs. Like, to Alex's point, sometimes there's a warranty repair, even in the machinery, even in the, so yeah, there's always going to be human error. We acknowledge it. We hope that nobody gets hurt. I say to my writing team every day, this is why I'm not a cardiac surgeon, because nobody dies when I mess up software documentation. I can't imagine having someone's life in my hands on the operating table, and I'm glad that I don't have to. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was good to hear. Definitely always striving for excellence, but as someone who is about to enter the career, good to know it's good to hear it's not a Queen of Hearts situation out there. So this is something Oscar was asking Susan. It looks like you answered it in the chat, but I just wanted in case you wanted to answer any part of it out loud. So he's doing an interview for a technical writing internship. And I lost the second part of that question, but he was basically asking, any interview tips. So would you add anything to the chat? What you said in the chat?
Yeah, just, I think it's the typical interview stuff, right? Like, yeah, and it's the same stuff that we gave to Rolanda. Focus on what you do really well. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have time, like, for the anecdote, but yeah, I had left academia to go into technical writing. So I honestly I had experience in the theoretical realm of technical writing, but I had no practical experience. So it's not like I could give them, I couldn't give them my own portfolio. I could show them what I taught students. So I really felt like I had one hand tied behind my back going into this. So instead, what I did when I was asked, sorry, you guys are going to get an anecdote whether you want it or not. What I did, when the interviewer said, like, well, how are you going to handle, because she came right out and said, well, you used to have a whole syllabus and you had 15 weeks for a semester. We work very differently here. We have competing priorities and shifting, blah, blah, blah. And I just sort of said, you know what? I'm a mom. I've been a mom for 15 years, I think, at that point, more than that, whatever. And, and I said, so I've had to manage 3 kids' schedules, and they all do different sports and they have different projects and things. And I said, and on top of that, I'm a triathlete. And I said, so I have to plan a calendar and figure out how to train for 3 different sports, 3 different deadlines, races going on, and nutrition and balance. And I do that on top of getting my kids to where they need to go. And I said, I'm pretty sure I can handle competing deadlines and competing responsibilities. And I said it with this like bravado that I walked out of there and I was like, oh my God, this woman probably thinks I'm a jerk, but I really felt like I was like, listen, let me explain to you how I can calendar out and map competing priorities and different, I was like, lady, I can write your stupid tech documentation because I can plan out how to do 6 races in a year with 3 different sports. Bring it. And that was really, I say that to lots of people now. I'm like, tell them what it is that you do really well, what you're really confident in, and go there. And in the years after that I worked for this company, she was like, that was kind of what did it for me. She was like, I'm not that impressed that you are a triathlete. That's great and everything. And sure, it's super impressive. And she was like, but you explained to me how you divide a calendar, how you have these competing priorities, and how you line everything up and you get the job done. And I was like, good, well, I came in and I learned how to do mainframe software tech writing, I guess. So when you go into an interview, it didn't matter to her that I didn't know anything about mainframe. What mattered to her was I understood how to take a job and break it down into its component parts and deliver what was needed. That's what you do. And that's kind of what I was trying to tell Oscar. That's what I've said. Rolanda, you and I have talked before about job interviews. That's what you bring to the table. I wasn't confident in mainframe technical writing. I was confident in my ability to deliver things on time at a top quality level. So I just had to tell her to have faith in me that I could figure out the rest of it.
Yeah, I really like that. I'm definitely going to put that in my own back pocket as well. The next question is also a question for you, Susan. So Winnie works in clinical trials. as well, asking if you have any tips transitioning into technical documentation in the life sciences, as she has just started a master's program in technical writing.
Yeah, life sciences are you know, despite the fact that there's been some shift in the current administration, life sciences are going to continue to grow. So just keep your eye on, there are some major players, you know, outside of the traditional, like NIH, that sort of thing. You know, our company, Medidata and Viva and Sama, and, you know, they all need technical writers. They all need communicators. So the field is broad, but there's always, you know, pharmaceutical companies all the way down to clinical research organizations need people with clinical experience. I think the biggest, steepest learning curve when I went from, you know, mainframe into clinical trials was learning that clinical vocabulary. So I don't think that you'll have a lot of trouble. And so then I guess my only other recommendation is connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'll see. That's the whole networking part, right? Is when you're ready, we'll see what we can do to connect you with people either within my company or within other companies. Absolutely. Just network your way.
Thanks, Susan. The next question for Alex. Asking in the chat if a technical degree is necessary, especially if math isn't your particular strength. I saw that you had said in the chat you don't need a technical degree, just a technical curious mind.
Yep.
Is there any thing you want to expand on that?
So I would say, so don't be intimidated by the nature of what we do. There are people within the industry that are waiting for you to teach you, to bring you up to speed, and people that are very, very passionate, both engineers and technical writers alike. So technical degree is definitely not a necessity. Just be curious and have an open mind.
I like that. And then we don't have, again, final call for questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I have a question. This is kind of a curveball one, but just curious if any of you, with what you've seen in your industry, in your work, anything that you're like, this is going to be the future of tech comm, a trend that's coming down the pipe, anything like that.
Yeah, wrap your head around AI. Any chance you get to learn about those emerging tools in whatever capacity, just so that you have a vocabulary and you can understand. I think the biggest confusion that I see out there in the technical writing atmosphere is that people throughout industry, not just tech writing, right? Throughout industry, business owners, managers, all levels of executive don't understand the difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. Every company right now, just like 20 years ago, everybody was calling themselves a content strategist or an information architect. And everybody was like, what is that? What is that label? What is the difference, right? And now we've sort of winnowed it down and we do know the differences and things. They don't know. They don't know what it is. Every company is saying, we use AI, and about 10% are actually using AI. So if you can carve out a spot where you actually know what a large language model is, what a neural network is, you will be absolutely so critical and so valuable, because it will be used in everything that we touch in the next 10 years. And if you have a command of that language and you actually know what you're talking about, you'll be way ahead.
Do you know of any good resources of learning about AI, LLMs, all of that, or is it just getting your hands dirty and with the models themselves?
There are so many out there. Microsoft offers a ton of free courses. Just go to LinkedIn Learning. There are so many great free courses out there, because I'm not suggesting that you need to know a deep technical level. I'm suggesting you have to know the vocabulary so that you know, what is a large language model? How does that work? The difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. So you really can just go to Google and get some of their training. Go to Microsoft, get some of there's so many free trainings out there just so that you are the person in the room. Again, we're all technical writers, right? You need to have the vocabulary so that you are the person in the room who knows what you're talking about. Yeah, tons and tons and tons of free training. They're giving them away. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. I like that as a student.
Yeah.
I like the giving them away. That's
Yeah, it really, so many, they just want you to know. Yeah.
okay, cool. Did anyone else want to add to that question? If not, all good.
Oh, you guys have to have something else. Like I didn't storm in there. There's other stuff that I don't know about.
Academia moves kind of slow. So my my niche is not what's coming. It's okay, this is how we are going to deal with what we have been given. And it that's cool with me. I'm
Yeah.
okay with
I would tend to agree with,
analyzing what
yeah.
exists, rather than going out and finding it.
Yep, I would tend to agree. So does aerospace. And when it's moving fast, well, there's other things going on, right? So, but yeah, the industry does move fast when it needs to meet a need, and we never know when those days come. So.
Fair.
And when I say academia, I mean like academic scholarship. I don't mean
Mhm.
like classes, right? So
Yeah.
next semester, your classes may have a lot more AI integration than the next. And UCF is definitely a proponent of preparing us and having us prepare students to use AI and to understand large language models, even if it's just at a very surface level of like, these are the types of prompts you get it to get the answers that you're looking for.
I like the going with the flow. I think that's from what I can tell, a pretty big trend for any type of technical communication. And we're getting close to 8:30, so I'll turn it over to Julia to wrap us up. But just yeah, for me, thank you to the panelists. I really enjoyed hearing your insights. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Julia.
I wanted to speak up and say if I could give you guys a word of encouragement before we close. I don't know if I'm trying to raise my hand, but it won't work. I can't find it. Speaking of going with the flow. I don't know if that's too much though, but.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
No, that's not your fault. I just wanted to encourage you because I've been working with John, and one of the things that's in the job market out there is overseas resources. I think it's technical communication is the one thing you should not go overseas with, but I'm now a hiring manager and I've been working with John. I was saying we were needing to hire, and I said I would rather hire anyone out of UCF, and I would get more done with them in a year than I would get done in 3 years with an overseas resource. And now that but it's just what the company limits are. So I wanted to help you understand, like from a hiring manager's perspective, I just want to give you some encouragement because it's crazy out there, but there's things that you can do that AI can't do. And that is a manager can give you an assignment and you have the common sense to call the right people and figure it out and ask the right questions, because really it's prompt engineering in real life. And I'm seeing working that way that I'm not hearing that. And it's very frustrating to be a manager where you just think, where was your thought process when you did nothing or came back with the wrong thing? And it's just wonderful. I kept saying, gosh, I really like to hire a student. And you have so much more to offer because you can, as a hiring manager, I need to know that you'll figure it out and you know who to call. And that's something I think, Susan, you did such a great job. I just wanted to give that contrast because with AI and overseas resources, it's so much more valuable because you're there to save them time. Whereas some of these other tools will cost them time because I've been there. I'm supposed to get something done in 2 to 3 months, and I don't know what happened, but it took 8 months, and I had to do it all at the end. So there's definitely companies out there that have been through that, and they will see your value. Just understand that is one of your values. You have the common sense. So I don't know. I thought as a student, nobody told me that, and I was like, if I can encourage anybody, now that I'm on the other side, the hiring side of it, I'm like, wow, that's really important to know and giving you confidence. Susan, you said it so well. I just thought I'd.
Oh, thank you. I
Um,
try.
If I can speak for the students, I definitely appreciate the encouragement. I am swiftly reaching the end of my undergraduate career, so it's definitely encouraging to hear. So I appreciate that. But yeah, turning it over to Julia to wrap us up.
Thank you guys for being our panelists. And Chantal, if you could move a few slides up. Here's all of the contact information for FTC, STC Florida, and the general STC website. Please stay in touch with us, everybody. And if we can go, well, give you a second in case you need a screenshot. Next slide. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We look forward to having you again at one of our next educational panels. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everyone.